Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for joining us today. Well, we have another pistol video for you here today, and this is another viewer request. We've been receiving a lot of requests, actually, to cover CZ firearms, and with that in mind, we're going to be talking about the CZ P10C. CZ continues to impress with handguns that focus on ergonomics, great triggers, and reliability. How does the P10C stack up in a market with lots of other great offerings? And does it have what it takes to be a great concealed carry firearm? Well, we're going to find out in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've been watching our videos and you just haven't had a chance to do so and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can find that little subscribe button in the right-hand corner of your computer screen there, or you can scroll down below the video if you're on a mobile device and you can hit the subscribe button that way. It's a simple thing that helps us out a whole lot, and we really, really appreciate it. So, CZ P10C. CZ's been making really good quality firearms for a long time, and the more of them that I get a chance to test and shoot and review, the better I like them. This is no exception. There's lots to talk about here, so I'm going to start off by doing what we always want to do a little size comparison. I've got a few different offerings I'm going to put up against today, just because they're things that I really like in the compact market. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't start off with the Glock 19, just because it's kind of a standard as far as popularity for compact 9mm double stack handguns. So obviously we need to make sure that we cover this one as well. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is if we're comparing the CZ and the Glock, you're going to find, by looking at this here, you see that the CZ has a 15 round magazine, and of course the Glock 19 also has a 15 round magazine. And most pistols in the comparison are going to be similar as far as their capacity, but I think that's another good reason to make the comparison. You can see they're pretty close as far as their overall size, trigger guards, dimension. The grip's a little bit sleeker on the Glock, but overall they're very, very close. And if you look at them as far as the thickness, as far as over the slide, you know, you got a little bit different slight setup there. And then, of course, if you look at them from the back, you can see that the CZ is very close as far as the total length of the grip there. So very, very close. And I think another one that we need to look at, this is another one that's a favorite of mine that's a compact, and that is the FN509. Now, this is the compact tactical. So the firearm itself is actually would be a little bit smaller if it wasn't for the threaded barrel, but I stick it in the same category because to me this is going to be about the same setup in the holster. I really like the FN firearms as well, but the weight and overall size of the FN when it's in the holster, this is a weapon I'm very comfortable with carrying on a daily basis. And the CZ actually feels a little less bulky in the holster than the FN does. So that's just a little extra info for you there. Now, we're talking about a different action. We're talking about a hammer fired, but I also wanted to get the HK USP compact in here, because you can see the USP is going to be a little bit shorter barrel, and the grip setup is a little bit different, but these, of course, are very, very similar as far as their trigger guard. You got to remember, when you're talking about size in the holster, the things that are going to make a lot of that happen are going to be the slide and the trigger guard, and of course how much grip is coming out. Now, the CZ is a little slimmer overall than the HK, but these are all firearms that are in the compact category that I have carried and do carry on a regular basis. So by looking at all those, if you're familiar with any of those offerings we just looked at, and you're comfortable with any of those in the holster, then this one, being a little bit slimmer, is going to be a similar level of comfort when you carry it. All right, we're going to jump right into the features here, but before we do, of course, we want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the CZ P10C for our tabletop review today. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearm safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. So in no particular order, kind of top to bottom, the first thing you'll notice when we look on the top of this thing is you'll see there's an optics plate here. And this firearm's currently compatible with either Trijicon RMR or the Delta Point Pro. There's plates available for that. You can also get sights, matching sights that will let you co-witness with an optic, so those are available as well. Now, I think the sights that come with it are pretty good. You've got this high visibility orange ring around your tritium in the front. So you have a night sight in the front, and of course you have this metal sight in the rear. And the front sight visibility is so good that you can really get on target very well with this thing. It's just such a good looking setup. Pretty pronounced serrations in the front and the rear, so if you're using gloves or not, you can get a really good grip on the firearm to slide that back. You'll see that there is an accessory rail here on the front. If you like the option of having lights and or lasers on your firearm, you can certainly do that. Good sized trigger guard. I really like this. I've got pretty long finger and pretty good sized fingers, and I like to be able to just drop right into the trigger guard without having to hunt around for that. You will notice here you've got your slide stop. I'm going to drop this magazine here and do a quick safety check for you before we get to that point too far. You can see that we have nothing in here. We are nice and clear, and of course there's your slide release. Other side, so it's ambidextrous. Of course, we just dropped our magazine, but let me show you that again. That drops right out, and if you look on the other side, you will see that this is reversible. You can take this off and put that on the other side if you'd like, if you were a lefty and you would like to do that. Trigger. We're going to cover this more in the range section, but the trigger on this is just so nice. If you have been considering a firearm and you've looked at CZs in the case, if you're trying to decide whether this might be a good choice for you, I encourage you to try to go someplace where they have different firearms available to rent or use at the range and shoot a CZ. I think if you can actually get this gun in your hand and see how it feels and performs, I think that might help you because the triggers are just really nice. You've got this little notch right here with that little lever, and you see this other one on the other side. Well, it's like a Glock when it comes to takedown. You're going to make sure you get finger on each side and grab those. You're going to pull back the slide just a little bit and then pull those down, and then you can push forward, and as you can see, the whole works just slides forward. Now, of course, once that's off, you got your spring and your rod right there, and of course you can tip your barrel out, and that's all you got to really do for your basic cleaning, and then you'll put it back together, of course, and slide it back. It's a very easy setup. Like I say, if you've ever taken down a Glock, this is the exact same thing. So very easy there. You've got, I like the grip texturing here. It would seem like it's harsh, but it's really not. It's just about right. Between this and the indentions, the ergonomics of the grip, you've really got a place for everything to go. When you've got your hands together in position, your thumbs have a place where they're supposed to be. Your finger can ride up close. Your hand can get in high here underneath the back. And it's just a really nice setup. Now, they give you additional back straps, so you've got a small, medium, and a large. If you want to change those out, that's pretty easy. With just the regular small back strap on this one, even with my good sized hands, I found this to be very comfortable. I experimented with the other two as well, and I think the medium is about as large as I would go. But even with the small, I was really impressed with how good this fits in the hand and how much room I had to get both hands on the firearm. It's really well made. You also have this additional texturing up here above the trigger guard, and depending on your particular use and gripping style, there might be some other ways to use that. I've seen some people use that as just a resting place for their finger. I've seen some people with some rather different grip setups where they actually ended up using that forward section with their thumb. So you have a lot of options of how you're going to take advantage of that, but it is there. So overall, as I said, it's a very nice setup. It's a very well made firearm. It feels like it's quality, and you get a lot of features on this firearm. So let's talk about the range. I mentioned earlier that if you have been considering CZ firearms, and maybe you were like me before I got my hands on my first few a few years back, I didn't really know a lot about CZ. I'd seen other people shoot them, seen them in the case, of course. I keep up with all the different firearms that are in the industry. But if you haven't really made a commitment, to pick up a particular gun or a particular series of guns or brand, you may not know anything about them. And the one thing that continues to impress me with CZ is how well they shoot, how good their triggers are. And this is no exception. There are a lot of striker fire pistols available on the market. I don't think every striker fired offering out there has got the quality or the trigger that CZs do. And of course, CZ makes a lot of great hammer-fired weapons as well. I've shot my share of those, and that's one thing that sort of got me to look at the others, is how well their hammer-fired pistols perform. So taking a look at this, once again, let me get our magazine out here and let everybody see that we are still in a safe, clear condition here. Everything is good to go right there. I want to show you this trigger. So when you come in, you can see I'm going to start putting pressure. You've got your trigger safety right there that has to be engaged for the trigger to move back. So I'm actually on the trigger now and I move. There's just a little bit, just the slightest bit of take up, and you hit a definite little pressure right there, and then it fires. Now watch this. I'm going to recycle the slide and look at your reset. I'm going to do that again. Pull the trigger, clean break, and then look at your reset. That is really, really nice. When you're shooting the CZ, you don't really realize how good this trigger is until you really get started with it. Because if you shot other striker fired pistols, and let's say you're used to shooting a Glock, to me a Glock has got an okay trigger. I'm not going to say it has the best trigger, but it has an okay trigger. They're pretty consistent. I have many Glocks, and to me they all feel about the same, even from one generation to the other. There's a slight difference between them, but when someone asks me what I think about it, I say, well, it's a Glock trigger. Not bad. But the trigger on the CZ just feels so good. It is so crisp, such a short reset, and it is such a clean break. From the moment that you get started at the range with this firearm, you can see very quickly that a lot of thought has gone into this. Now CZ, one of the other things that I think is important when you talk about a firearm's reliability and performance, of course, is how well it does with a variety of ammunition. So for the purpose of this test, I started off with some range ammo, some of the S&B here. There was no problem with that. I also had some of the PMC, and both of these are 115 grain. By the way, and I used some of the PMC Full Metal Jacket as well. That performed flawlessly. Now I have some defensive rounds as well. I always try to get a little bit of everything in. I pretty much am not going to test any firearm without using the SIG V-Crown. I really like this particular jacketed hollow point. It's been very reliable. I've used this in a number of weapons. I mean, a ton of 9mm weapons. I've never had a problem ever. I've also had pretty good luck with the Hornady, the Critical Duty. This is a pretty good defensive round as well. The CZ had no issues with it. And of course, I had some of the 115 grain. This is the Barnes, the TAC XPD. This is pretty good, reliable as well. Now I've got a lot of other examples of both range and defensive ammo I can use. I've got some Winchester, I've got Springfield, and I've put just about everything through this firearm. And that's the point. It's not picky at all about ammo. And from the first magazine, I never felt like that the firearm was going to have a problem. And so far, it has not. Everything feels very good quality. Like I said, this is a 15+1 capacity. And it's one of those deals where if you've never shot a CZ pistol before, to me it's not going to take very long to adjust to how this firearm shoots. I train typically at 21 feet, and at 21 feet, first time I ever picked up this firearm, I was shooting 1-inch groups inside of 21 feet pretty much right away. My first couple of shots kind of showed me how the gun felt, and then before I'm done with the first magazine, I'm shooting a very respectable group at 21 feet. I also shot this at a little bit longer ranges just to see how accurate it was. And I was pretty happy with it. Now, I don't train at those longer distances because I train strictly for defensive purposes. But the CZ P10C is a very good shooting weapon. It's a very forgiving firearm. Like I said, right out of the box, it shoots very well. And even people that were at the range that were kind of first-timers, never seen the weapon, that got to get their hands on it as well, they also enjoyed its very forgiving nature. And they saw how accurate and how great the trigger is on this firearm that makes you a better shooter. So what's it like to carry the CZ P10C as a carry firearm? Well, there's a couple of ways we can answer that question. The first question I would ask you is, well, have you ever carried a Glock 19? And the reason I ask you that is because the Glock 19 and some of the others I showed you, the FN, the 509, the HK USP, you know, these guns are not the exact same size. None of them are the exact same weight. But what I'm saying is the amount of bulk and approximate weight are very, very similar. Oddly enough, with the CZ, I didn't have a specific holster prepared for this firearm. So just taking a gamble, I grabbed one of my crossbreeds. I use these little crossbreed Super Tuck holsters a lot because you've got the Horsehide Kydex. It's got two big clips. I think that these are really well made. So I just thought, well, I wonder if my CZ will fit that Glock 19 holster. And yeah, it went right in there. So as you can see, you know, it's a perfect fit. It's not moving around. It's not even meant for this holster, but it did a pretty good job. Now, since that time, I've ordered a specific Super Tuck for this firearm. So I'll have one dedicated for it before long. But it's nice to know that it's close enough to the Glock 19 that I can go right in there. So I use the Crossbreed Super Tuck for the purpose of the test. And as I suspected, it doesn't feel any different than it feels carrying the Glock, the FN, the HK USP. The bulk and the weight are all about the same. Very comfortable in and I think it's important that you're in a wider holster like that that can distribute the weight. Obviously, just having the right firearm is part of the issue, but you need to make sure you have a good holster and a good belt. If your belt isn't good and firm, provides support, then of course even a compact gun like this can make it sag. I had a really good holster set up with that Crossbreed, and so this was extremely comfortable for me, and I wouldn't hesitate to carry this as a regular carry gun because even though the bulk is similar to the other firearms I mentioned, it actually feels a lot slimmer. And to me, it feels like there's a little bit less grip that was sticking out of the top of the holster. So from a comfort standpoint, it was really good. So overall impressions of the CZ P10C. Well, there's a lot I can say about this firearm, but I'm going to keep the overall simple, which is, you know, when I started off the video, I named several firearms that were pretty popular for me as far as carry in the compact category. We talked about the FN, we talked about the HK USP, and of course we talked about the Glock. Now, the MSRP on a gun like this, I believe it's around $665 is what they're quoting on their website. So, you know, what you pay will vary in this market, obviously. But the FN and the HK For me, those were a little bit higher, monetarily. They were a little more expensive in that same category. Even at a higher price, I don't necessarily feel like that either of the more expensive offerings is a more accurate and more reliable or more ergonomic handgun. I think they all do very well. So with that in mind, if price is a consideration for you at all, and you want a good quality firearm, if you want to know that you are not giving anything up to go with a less expensive option, then I think you really, really should take a look at and consider the CZ. It's a really good firearm. Almost every person that I've talked to who's ever had a chance to shoot one has come back with a similar opinion about how well they are as far as accuracy, how good it feels, and their owner experience as far as them being reliable and being rugged. So as far as I'm concerned, the CZ P10C is a major contender in this category. It might not be going too far to say that this is one of the best shooting, best overall firearms in this category at any price. So if you've been considering this as an option, I can't think of a single thing that would discourage you from doing that. But the best way to find out is to go down to your range and see if you can get a hold of one and take it in and shoot it yourself. I think once you do that, you'll have a better understanding of why CZs are popular and why they are getting more popular all the time. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for today. As always, we appreciate you for being with us and taking the time. We're going to be back very soon with another video for you. So until that time, as always, everybody be safe and have a great day. Thank you very much.